stays. My head, it don't move.
My head, it don't move.
It looks so picky on
It's a good before and after.
Their marriage had become abusive and toxic, but her newfound happiness would be short-lived. Only 4 months after leaving her husband, Cindy's
it stays. My head, it don't move.
My head, it don't move.
Before Cindy could do anything, the caller had hung up. Cindy was horrified and didn't know what to do, so she did nothing. And then over the next few days,
Jordan, there's so much hair. I think you need me to look after it again for a bit.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
This had to be some terrible prank, and so she continued to do nothing.
Okay.
One night, Cindy couldn't help but feel like she was being watched, and she looked at
You got the camera a different way to how I had it. Yeah, that's it, that's it. Is the arm alright?
Not in a minute.
Okay, I'm gonna try this.
You sure you want to show the nuttiness of this?
Yeah. Just when we do that.
And at that point, Cindy called the police. But when the police showed up, the only evidence of this attack was Cindy's first-hand account and this nylon stocking. But the police believed the nylon stocking was Cindy's, and she had staged the whole event and she had tied it around her neck herself. A few days later, in January of 1983, Cindy moved into a new home in a town called Richmond, which is a suburb of Vancouver, Canada. And as soon as she got there, she painted her car a new color, and she actually changed her last name to James. For months, she didn't see or hear from her stalker. But in October of that year, she found another dead cat on the property with a note next to it that just said, "You're next." Fearing for her life, she called the Richmond police, who set up a surveillance operation on her property. But for months, despite dozens of officers watching her house at practically all hours, they never, ever saw any stalker activity. But as soon as the officers left, for any amount of time, when there was a gap in surveillance, Cindy would call the police and report stalker activity. In time, this town's police department also began to suspect that Cindy was fabricating the stalker story, and they told her as much. Now, blatantly knowing the police were not taking her seriously, Cindy hired a local private detective named Ozzy Kavan to look into her case. Immediately, he installed floodlights all around the property, and he gave her a two-way radio to place inside her house that constantly broadcast back to Ozzy. That way, if she was in trouble, he would know about it, even if she couldn't get to the radio to actually tell him. He also installed a panic button.
So if you'd like to learn about this new Amazon model, I've put together a super short free training that you can attend where I'm going to be revealing everything about how the model works and how you can start using it today to start making money for yourself. All you have to do is click this ad to attend the free training either now or whatever time is most convenient for you, and I'll be showing you exactly how you can use
The house was totally silent, and after a couple of minutes of no commotion upstairs, Agnes began searching the house for a friend, and she discovered that Cindy wasn't there, so she called the police. The police launched a search and very quickly found Cindy's car in a parking lot at a local supermarket. And when investigators went over the car, they discovered there was blood on the outside of the driver's side door. The contents of Cindy's purse, including credit cards and ID, were scattered about on the ground near the car. And then in the trunk of the vehicle were the groceries that Cindy had recently purchased. But despite her car being found, there was really no indication of where she went next. Her friends and family believed she had been kidnapped by her stalker, and police believed she was staging yet another event. But regardless, no one could worker had drank too much coffee and needed to use the bathroom. But where they were working, they did not have a portage on, and they were not near any local businesses that might offer public restrooms. The only area that offered any privacy was the abandoned building that was right near their work site. And so this worker told his crew where he was headed. He turned and began walking across the totally overgrown front yard of this property. And as he began walking around the side of this building, he smelled this horrific smell, like one of the worst smells he'd ever smelled in his life. And he assumed that because this property was abandoned, maybe people were dumping their trash on it somewhere.
Over the entire life of my plan, if I pay in more than the sum paid out to fund my funeral service, my family will be eligible for a rebate of up to 100% of the difference. That's brilliant, to be honest. It shows their commitment to making sure families always get the best. Look, there's a lot to take in. Nearly 75% of all funerals put families into debt. Imagine that. We know this day will come and yet so few people actually.
Which is the cheapest type of funeral? Cremation?
I know you feel
Cremation, you know. Cremation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, do that to me, yeah. And then put a little piece of me, everyone can have it in a locket. What? What? I'm saying it for now in case something happens.
No signs of slowing down. And you definitely know that needing a funeral is the only outcome that is guaranteed for every single one of us. Which is why sorting
Is that
out
not too
a
big?
funeral plan that
That's way
protects
too
my
big.
family
Is it too big?
Yeah, look at that.
Josh, it's two plats, remember? It's gotta go up there and down to there. That is quay up there. That's where that is.
No, stretch it out, stretch it down. And then move the rest out of the way.
It's the same.
Move that back bit out of the way.
It is not even wide.
Alright, cool,
Oksana
yeah.
did not go back in the house, and her parents seemingly did not notice her absence. And over the next 5 years, Oksana would stay with this family of dogs, essentially living like she was part of their pack, which meant over those 5 very formative years from ages 3 to 8 years old, Oksana had almost no interaction with humans. Oksana rapidly learned how to behave like a dog and began only walking on all fours. She would bark instead of trying to speak, and she would eat raw meat. By the early 90s, Oksana no longer identified as a human. She identified as a dog. And it was in the early 90s when a passerby happened to see Oksana running around on all fours in the back of her house in the woods, and they called the police, wondering what was wrong with this person. The police show up, and Oksana's dog family runs out and starts barking at the police to protect Oksana, and Oksana would start barking ferociously to protect herself from being captured. But eventually the police would use meat to lure the rest of the dogs away so they could retrieve the child. When she was taken into custody, doctors saw that she not only had forgotten how to walk on 2 legs, she also couldn't speak. And doctors were concerned that because she had had almost no exposure to human language for all those formative early years, that she might not actually have the capacity to speak it. Oksana was taken to the orphanage where she would eventually learn how to walk on 2 legs, and amazingly, she would learn how to speak. But despite these incredible gains she made towards re-entering society, her experience living with the dogs had really left a mark on her. Although she could speak, she could only speak in monotone, with no rhythm and no intonation. It was actually difficult to follow what she was saying because of
No
that.
rhythm and no intonation.
What's intonation?
I don't even know.
Capacity was only that of a 6-year-old, despite being
I don't know, but I think black people are naturally born with it.
Thrown down the road. Literally a second later, as everyone's like, what is going on? Sabina yells, "They're gonna steal your organs!" And she leaps into traffic and gets hit by another car. Immediately, police run in the road, they stop traffic, and they go up to Ursula, who was the first to get hit. 3rd time in 24 hours. This time, she's frantic. While she's on the phone with the operator, she's periodically screaming at these 2 people that are apparently robbing her apartment to get the F out of here, get out of my apartment, you can't be here. And the operator is trying to get more information out of Kaylin, but Kaylin is very distressed. She can barely communicate with the operator.
go.